Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So I just finished binge watching Netflix's MH370, the plane that disappeared, which is weird because I was only talking about it a few podcasts ago when I was talking about Nicola Bulley and her mystery disappearance, although now she's been found. But yeah, I mentioned MH370, which I think is 7 years now, and they still haven't found the main plane wreckage. They found bits, which some people cast doubts on, but it was interesting because it went through different theories. But I guess the problem with having different theories is then it leads to people, easily be able to say, well, this is conspiracy theories, in this day, that's the easiest. If you only like the authority or you like the official story, it's very easy to shut down anything by just using that FBI loaded term of conspiracy theory, and then everyone dismisses it straight away as if alternative thought or actually thinking is somehow a crime. I do get it that it's problematic this day and age with everyone being able to give their opinion and having to take everybody's social media comments as factual when trying to get to solve something. It's difficult to turn it off. But it was interesting because it suggested a few things that, they seem credible. The problem is some of them are a bit far-fetched. And of course the problem is because it's a mystery, because we have so few details, and without a wreckage and without a black box and without any kind of information from anyone on board that plane, a lot of it is just data and speculation and trying to use that data and form a judgment. And that's what I wondered with the Inmarsat satellite data. Can they verify that the pings or handshakes, as they call them, that they got back from the plane were from MH370? Does the box that's on there that's talking to the satellite, does it give a signature that is only for 370? Does it say that it's 370 before it gives the handshake? That's what I don't know. Are they individually, because I wouldn't have thought so. I would have thought when they make these things, it depends what they're using that handshake for, what that satellite system is used for. Is it for their autopilot or for the mapping system or what? I don't know. Or just talking to someone. So I don't know what it's really about, and whether they are individually, could it have been that they picked up another plane's handshake and they just assuming it's MH370. I don't know whether there are other planes. Obviously, we know, I don't know, in Malaysia, how many planes fly over that airspace, how many different companies' planes, how many other Boeings with the Inmarsat box inside them flew over those areas in those moments where those handshakes were given. So can they confirm that they were definitely from MH370? Is there a signature in their data that has that? Of course, if there is a conspiracy, which is what there was a suggestion, I don't know what other word to use other than that, because there was two hypothesis that it could have been the Americans because they were doing military exercise there, and someone said they saw two American planes that it was AWACS or something like that they are to stop radar signals. That maybe explained why the transponder went off, and they didn't want some cargo going to China. And then there's also a Russian one that, because it was during the invasion of Crimea, that this is a way to stop the media talking about that, because then everyone concentrated on MH370 for ages. And it's not the first time where war has been used to try and deflect from internal politics. Of course, it's easy for someone to say, from a human point of view, you think, well, which government, which person, especially if you think of America as a friendly country wearing the white hat, who would kill 239 people for, so that China doesn't get some drone secrets, or Russia covers up an invasion. Of course, the thing is, from a human perspective, it seems, impossible to think governments would do such a thing. But then we know that governments do send soldiers in war times, and they don't have any conscience about doing that. They can easily, like now with Russia and Ukraine and the Second World War and all these other wars, Afghanistan, Iraq, some wars, I guess you could claim that they needed to happen, to defend. But a lot of wars are just about power, greed and possession, and yet there are people that would easily send men to their deaths, more than 200, and not, still be able to sleep about it because... And we would, and like when I'm making this argument now, you're going to have this feeling that, no, that's not the same. But that's because we've all been, not brainwashed, but we've been taught to believe that war, is honourable or has a necessity, or that somehow it doesn't equate to the same thing as killing 200 people in a plane. But, because you're saying they're soldiers and, you're not actually putting them to death, as it were. But then again, that just sparked in my head now about what about executions, lethal injections? And a lot of people don't mind that happening to human beings. That's because you're countering that. Oh, well, they've committed a crime, so it's okay to kill people. So it's just a way of training your mind. So if whoever made, if someone did in America or Russian or whoever made a decision that, we're going to have to kill 239 people because of the outcome outweighs that in their mind, because they can send thousands and tens of thousands of people to their deaths in wars, I don't think it's an impossibility. Of course, still, I know even my mind is saying, no, that's not possible. Why would they do that? There must be other easier ways. But it would make sort of sense to the story of why it's a mystery and why the plane hasn't still been found, and maybe why, because it could explain why the bits were then found in a certain place, because someone was suggesting that the wing that was found didn't have its plate on it, and the only reason they don't have the plate on is when they chop up planes and they take them off. Of course, maybe it came off in the water, but the rest of it was still there, so you wouldn't have thought so. But if it's only glued on, it depends if it was nailed on or screwed on, then it's a bit unfortunate that it wasn't there, because if it was there, it would have been, maybe it had Malaysia 370 written on it, or a part number that would definitively say, yes, this is from it. But then they do claim, because I was reading online, there's a lot of factual inaccuracies about the Netflix documentary. That's a problem in this day and age, that with the media, especially because we make films of these things, and like it says at the end that some bits have been changed for dramatic purposes. So to try and get history or accuracy or truth from the media is very difficult. I'm talking about film and TV, although even these days the news, because a lot of people will leave out bits to for their agenda of the story. Same like there was this lady who was it from Tom Nod, that they were a crowdfunding thing where they looked at satellite images to try and find the wreckage, and she claimed to have found the debris, and there's pictures and it looks interesting. I don't know how you could, I don't get, some of them just looks like white blobs, and you're trying to say, well, this is the front nose, or this is the wing, or this is the Malaysia sign. But what I don't understand is when Netflix were given this information, why they didn't go to Boeing, why they didn't go to some satellite expert and say, okay, this is what this person's found. Can you have a look at it and tell us, is this, could this be a plane? Could this be Malaysia 370? But they didn't do that, and they leave that sort of mystery open, and it's sort of, that's problematic, because if they'd done that, then they could have said, no, that's nothing. But instead they leave it in our mind that, wow, maybe they did find it, and maybe they looked in the wrong place, and there it is, and it's been found. And that led to I guess what they wanted to do is create a conspiracy that leads to that, because then it's like, wow, then that means that it must have been a conspiracy because there it is, and that means why we're believing it's in a different place is because we're being misled. And then they did mention a case where there factually was a case where Russia, or they claim Russia, had put debris to try and mislead people in the 80s. The problem is the verifiers. How do you know? Because someone tells you something, and then you read on the internet that, well, no, it's not factually accurate. So then how do you actually know who's telling the truth? Because, often the TV will make this claim about social media that everyone, like me or whoever, is allowed to speak their mind, and who's verifying what they're saying? Because there's lots of people, they show clips of people saying that they know where the plane is and this is what happened and it was aliens or it was hijacked or whatever, without actually having any evidence, or they're just making a claim. But the problem is that the media do it as well. They do it by if they want to prove something, they get a researcher in, and the thing is, you could pick, like with science, like with the news, when they've got a story, and if their angle is a certain way, there's tens of thousands of specialists they can talk to, and they know which way they side. So if they've got a story that's against Labour, to do with, say, the NHS or whatever, they'll find a doctor who's very conservative that doesn't like Labour, if that's their agenda, or if they want to go the other way, they'll find a Labour one. It's easy to find. Or if you've got someone, we were talking about, say, abortion, and you want to go down the Life's Matter, and then you could pick a doctor that believes in that, or one that doesn't. It depends on your agenda. So getting the truth and the fact, even in the media, because we often say, well, it's research and it's verified and it's legal and all that kind of thing, but they can do exactly the same thing. They just do it with more stealth, the same as governments do it as well. And so you're, as a person, as a human being who's trying to discern the truth, it's not easy, because you don't know who to trust and you don't know what has been verified and how good their verification is. Because you watch this Netflix documentary, it's on Netflix. Would they lie? Would they make claims that the Americans had shot it down and hidden it away, an American organization against America, for TV, for fallacious reasons? Well, according to this research I found on Google, there was lots of factual inaccuracies about this thing. The fact that you can't, well, even in the documentary it mentioned that you can't go on a laptop and hook into the bottom of the plane and fly it from there. Or the fact that some people say that the cockpit has the switch to turn off the, I forgot what it is, not the Immersat thing, it's the transponder. Whereas in that, it suggested it was inside, down below. Or maybe they were talking about the Immersat. And then there was the interesting thing about the Immersat, that it turned off and then turned back on again for its last handshake. But they claim that maybe because that's when the fuel ran out, the batteries went on and off, and that kind of thing caused that disturbance. But of course, I don't know, can that be pinpointed to the plane? How do they get that signal in that little bank of north and south that they've been talking about for years? Whereas I assume, like, if you've got a phone, it depends how far the satellite can pick up the signal from. Like if when they're looking for people and they got satellite, they got phone data, and they know that where the transponder is that picked up the ping, but it could be in a whole area. They often have a circle because it doesn't tell you exactly where. So what I don't know is, with the Immersat data, that circle where the plane could have been anywhere in that area, and therefore it could be where that woman had found the debris. Is it the plane went down when the transponder went off straight away, and that's why there was... But the thing is, I guess, the transponder went off, assuming there wasn't a massive failure in the plane, because maybe that's what happened. Everything went off, even communication. I don't know if they work on the same system, so that's possible. Here's me speculating. You see how dangerous it is, because now someone will pick that up and say, well, that's what happened, but I've got no way of knowing. But yet it doesn't stop me from making a claim or making a hypothesis. That's the problem, I guess. We as human beings, especially when mysteries are concerned, we like to find things out. We like to say, well, because we want to know the truth, isn't it? That's the thing. But then I guess it's up to people, I was going to say educated people, but the problem is as I found out through, for this truth of movement thing of, when you come to, say, flat Earth and globe Earth and people having different views and people being, set in their ways, that's the problem with human beings, is it depends who is verifying. what their mindset is like, whether they are open to ideas, because most people aren't open to other suggestions, especially suggestions from people who they don't consider, educated or part of the field or whatever. The minute you've got that word expert behind you, somehow you can say anything you like and it's verifiable. Whereas if you're not an expert, then wow, who are you to make this claim? Stop getting in the way. But I don't know. It's one of those interesting cases that, I say it's an interesting case from my point of view, from the point of view of the loved ones. Is there loved ones that are still missing to them, and they have to live with that, not really knowing what occurred. And I guess because no body's been found, always the hope that somehow the plane crashed in Kazakhstan and they're prisoners somewhere, and one day they'll be released or in China. But that's very far-fetched. But obviously if your loved ones are on that plane, until their bodies are found, you're going to try and cling to any hope, or at least you can't put to bed that they're dead because you don't want to believe that. And that's the difficulty, I guess, for them, having to participate or watch these things and still have no answers, especially this Netflix thing, because I expect it's going to now, because I've seen there's a lot of media interest online about this, and I hope that people will look at this lady's images and be able to say, ask a few experts to get different opinion, because those ones who just want to believe, the IMSAT data is undeniable, even though it is a mathematical equation and is not 100%, is it? That's the problem. Once you get set in your way an idea that something is fact, it's difficult for you to then undo it, even if it may not actually be fact. But because you've been told it's fact, it's difficult for you then to get around it. Say that's why I was trying to give that example of flat Earth and globe Earth. If your whole life you've been shown CGI pictures of a round Earth and someone says, no, it's actually flat, it's difficult for your mind to ever get past that. And you'll carry on with that mindset and thinking, and that may make you make mistakes. I'm not saying, I'm not, I don't know personally. It doesn't make sense that it's globe because of how water acts. But anyway, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is our mindsets and how sometimes they get in the way of us finding the truth, or because we're set in our ways and we can't unthink what we've already thought, as it were. But yeah, it's worth the watch. It's on Netflix. It's called MH370, the plane that disappeared. Has a lot of different theories in it. But the other interesting thing was about Blaine, because I think, was it Netflix or was it Channel 5 or somebody who made a documentary, was it last year or the year before, that centered more on him? But it was a bit weird. I don't know whether, I don't remember it being quite that weird, but suggesting that he just walked on a beach when he was looking for things and found bits of plane. Not even getting into the water and looking for bits. They actually just washed up and waiting for him to pick them up. It did seem a bit coincidental. I felt the French man came over best. He seemed to, who lost his, assume it's his wife and his children. He trying to find the truth, but of course the thing is a lot of people of making money out of this by selling books, by getting popularity, and that's a problem. That if you've got money, you go fly around the world and you get fame and whatever. There's reasons for people to make things up, or if like some were saying, if it was the Americans or the Russians that did this and they wanted to mislead people, it's easy for them to get a bit of plane and stick it on the beach, waiting for this crazy man to come and pick it up. And the fact that it doesn't even matter whether people believe them or not, because it allows that doubt out there, and it just continues the mystery, which is what they want if there is a conspiracy, because truth is the furthest from a mystery, isn't it? Because it's a mystery is truth waiting to be found out. But that's that was what interested me. So take care, take it easy, bless, and peace.